Hello, welcome back. Well, Russia's Ministry of Defence has said that Moscow has come under one of the largest drone attacks since the beginning of the war in Ukraine.
Breaking news here on Martyn Lucas Investor. Let's talk about the economy and how macro conditions, the war particularly, Russia and Ukraine, are affecting everything and where we might go next. As you know, I study the stocks every day. I went all the way in maths and all the way in history. So I do understand my history, First World War, Second World War, and potentially a Third World War. We want to get to the fact as opposed to this. This is a gentleman who used to work in a fast food restaurant who then got famous on YouTube. He's called Meet Kevin. He has 2 million subscribers. His history knowledge of the world's history is as useless as trying to solve an algebra equation by chewing bubblegum. It's absolutely useless, but it does get dramatic news. Only today, oh, this is bad. And yet we're up again. You're fired. Bankruptcy. The end of the war. World War III. Nuclear war. I'm effed. Yeah, he likes to swear a bit as well. All kinds of rubbish like this. When in fact, as we all know, the economy is up every day. And since he said the economy would go down 60%, I think I've gained about 25, 30%. And no sign of that changing either. Now then, Vladimir Putin decided to invade Ukraine a few years ago now. It's gone on a lot longer than we anticipated, partly because he wants to re-establish the Soviet Union. More and more countries now have joined NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was set up after the Second World War to protect the world, to provide a council to bring stability. The economy has changed, the world has changed, and now we are all together as one. World War III is never going to happen. I've made this statement and prediction many, many times. But over the last few days, the last week, we have seen something that hasn't happened since World War II. We have seen an all-out invasion of Russia. Now, this is very, very interesting because Vladimir Putin decided to attack a sovereign country and invade it. There's no question about it. He started by annexing Crimea many years ago now, and it was kind of left alone. And then he went away and he had a little bit of Crimea. A few years later, he came back. And now he wants a bit more of Ukraine, and he hopes then if he can take the Donbass area and the Kursk area, a few areas within Ukraine, we might piece a deal, and then he'll go away and he'll come back again another 10 years and take a piece more. The ultimate plan is to reinstate the Soviet Union. Anyone who reads up their history understands that and knows what's going on. However, Ukraine, and all good credit to them, not only have defended themselves, they are the food basket of the world, hence why it had a huge drop on the stock market when all this happened, and we'll get a huge rally. Well, not huge as much as it was when it went down, but because we've re-established trading routes since then in the Red Sea and other things that we've had to do to divert and blah, blah, blah. But essentially, it still affects the general economy, the food basket of Europe, of the world actually comes from Ukraine. A lot of wheat comes out of Ukraine and other commodities like that. So we will get a 10% rally when the war ends. But recently, Zelensky decided to invade Russia. And I have to say, as long as no innocent people are killed, and I have friends in Russia on this show, I hope no innocent civilian gets killed. But I take my hat off to him. And 2 fingers up to Vladimir Putin saying, you can't invade our country and all we're going to do is defend ourselves. No, we're going to attack Moscow. And we've got a whole wave now of drones being fired over Moscow. All good play to him. Now, let's not listen to what someone like Meet Kevin says with the brain of an idiot, but let's go and listen to an analyst, an actual analyst who studies military warfare, and have a listen here to some information, and let's discuss it very briefly, and we can establish where we see this going. My prediction is the war in Ukraine will end quicker than you can imagine, because Vladimir Putin will be forced to make a deal, and it won't be long before he'll be put out of power, because now people in Russia are feeling the fact that they are in a war, not a special operation. The guy is a complete bloody idiot. Nothing clever about him at all, and he's now going to be seen to be the idiot that he actually is. Let's listen into this right now. Here we go. Let me share my thoughts with you during this. Here we go.
Hello, welcome back. Well, Russia's Ministry of Defence has said that Moscow has come under one of the largest drone attacks since the beginning of the war in Ukraine back in 2022. Let's bring in our defence and security analyst, Michael Clark. Great to have you here on the programme. So how worried do you think Moscow will be about this drone attack?
It's something to be remarked on. They say they brought down 11 drones, Ukrainian drones. I mean, last May, they brought down 8 drones, so this will make it fairly big. But also, I've just been counting up. I mean, I think they reported across the country bringing down about 35 different drones. So some in Bryansk, some in Kaluga, some in Tula, some in Belgorod. The Ukrainians are obviously launching drones in lots of places. And there's a refinery fire in Rostov, which the Ukrainians targeted 4 days ago. It's still going on. It's still, after 4 days, still burning. So the Ukrainians are trying to worry the Russians as much as they can across the whole border to make the most of what they're doing in Kursk.
Can I ask a really obvious question to you, probably? What exactly will these drones be doing? Are they like surveillance? Will they be dropping munitions?
They're one-way attack drones. They're suicide drones. So the idea is to get over a target and just go into it. A bit like a doodlebug of the Second World War, the old V1s.
Yeah,
it's a suicide drone. And the Russians, if they say they've brought them down, they probably have. Of course, they've got to fall somewhere. And the chances are they will have done some damage, although there are no deaths reported. But from the Ukrainian point of view, they have the effect in Moscow of closing the airport. And that, again, for a while, and that brings home to the Russian people that this is war. You know, you can't insulate yourself from this. And that's the message that the Ukrainians are trying to send out. They know most of these drones won't get through. But if 1 or 2 get through, they score the point. And they inconvenience ordinary Russians in Moscow who pretend this isn't really happening.
That's really interesting, because in a way, I guess, the only way Ukraine could kind of win the war is to destabilise Russia. And you're saying that they're doing that with civilians, slightly with the airport, but also something's happening with the military as well behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Russians are still at 6s and 7s over what's happening in the Kursk Oblast, the Kursk region, this incursion. And they don't seem to have been able to sort out exactly who's in charge. And so last week, Dumin, who was one of the key advisors to Putin, was said to be told to sort it out. And Dumin is from Kursk, and he's a doer, he's a fixer, he's the sort of man who could do it. Yesterday, Belousov, who's the new defense minister, said, I'm establishing a council of 5, consultative council, to sort out what's going on. And so one of these 5 will do the logistics, and one will do medical support, and one will do civilian relief, and so on. And all of that is supposed to fit over Gerasimov, who is that's Belousov there in the middle. That's the new defense minister, having a look at some missiles. I would guess Iranian missiles, actually. Anyway, that's Belousov, and he said, we'll sort this out. But where does that leave him with Gerasimov? I mean, Gerasimov is the chief of the military, and the military is supposed to do this. And so in Moscow itself, you've got 3 people, Dumin, Belousov and Gerasimov, all of whom should be in charge, and it's not clear who is. And then on the ground in Kursk itself, the FSB are supposed to take care of the border. The Rosgvardia, who are the internal security troops, are supposed to take care of security. And the military have conscripts there. So you've got 3 different forces on the ground in Kursk, which is one of the reasons why they're not doing very well. And so it's apparent that 16 days after this incursion began, the Russians are still struggling to create a coherent response. And as we say, it's partly because Putin operates a sort of medieval court in the Kremlin. He's made Russian government into a medieval court. And when it's struck with a crisis like this, people just vie with each other to be close to the king.
Yeah, the power struggle is going on, but as you say, it could impact what's happening on the ground.
Yes, indeed.
Well. Thank you very much. Indeed, always good to have your expertise on the programme.
There we go. So I wanted to bring that information to you. Let's just come back to the stocks. A couple of trolls saying a couple of silly things during that, which is expected. Some fool says, you don't know anything about the war. Well, I can tell you now, I went all the way in history. So I actually trained with the British Army. My brother was in the military. He was in the Royal Artillery. I trained, did the SAS training course. I did many months going away with the army when I was younger. I did history. I understand what's going on with the war. And to say something ridiculous like you only talk about what suits your narrative, that's nearly as ignorant as the person this morning saying that I can pump and dump the S&P 500. I've never heard anything so ridiculous. That makes me more powerful than all the richest men in the world combined, apparently. I'm going to dump the stock on Warren Buffett. What a ridiculous statement that is. And talking about the war as if it suits my narrative. What is that? I don't want World War III, and that's a unique product of mine. How ridiculous is that? These are the sort of people that pop in and try to look important, and they're as effective as Vladimir Putin, which is absolutely zero. So anyway, there is the information presented to you. I have said this over and over again, and I'm going to say it again now, that the war in Ukraine will all of a sudden end faster than you can imagine. I think Vladimir Putin is likely to be ousted. People now in Russia are experiencing that there isn't a special operation. There is a war going on. They will be affected by it. I think that's what Zelensky is trying to prove. There's no defense of Russia. They're just walking straight in. People are, Russian soldiers are fleeing. Most of them are conscripts and used from prisons. If they run towards the enemy, they get killed. If they turn around and run back into Russia, they get killed. That's the army that everybody thinks is so amazing in Russia. An army doesn't make you great because you've got a bigger army or more money than anyone else. We all know that special services like the SAS or the Navy SEALs are a lot more effective than tens of thousands of regular soldiers. High quality soldiers, experienced, well-trained soldiers are far more powerful than a few conscripts and a few criminals you've just let out of prison with a get-out-of-jail card for free. And if they don't behave themselves, we'll shoot you. I mean, what's all that about? So Russia is in all kinds of problems now. Now, nobody with a right mind wants instability. Nobody in their right mind wants to see Russia crumble. What we want to see is Vladimir Putin forced to come to the table and negotiate a peaceful settlement, which has to be the removal of all troops from Ukraine. It's a country that has every right to exist. You can't invade it because you fancy it. It's not going to happen. We're going to see a 10% rally on the stock market. There's not going to be World War III because, like I've said before, and I hate always harping back to Meet Kevin, but he's just an easy target because there are so many people like him. He just stands out even more than most. There wasn't even a World War II, and let me explain what I mean by that. World War I existed and World War II existed. I'm not sitting here and saying it didn't, but what I mean by that is when we had World War I, and I'm bearing in mind, I'm now looking back at all conflicts from the Romans right the way through different periods of time, all through history, okay? I've studied all of this stuff in great detail in my life. I've studied history a lot. And we like to give things titles, give it a name, sell it. Make it dramatic, put it in newspapers. World War I, World War II. First World War was called the Great War. There was nothing great about it. It was called the Great War because the amount of people that died, many more than that died in the Second World War. The fact of the matter is, when Adolf Hitler started World War I, we were in a very different economy. Economies could be reset up. We could have separate economies around the world. Adolf Hitler thought he could pursue his mission on the world, set up power, businesses, empires, whatever it might be. The British Empire tried this once upon a time in a different climate, and it was possible then. It's not possible now. So what he did, he tried to divide Europe and lord it over, if you like, put power over to then inflict his will and all the rest of it. Well, that never got sorted out. The politics never got sorted out, and World War II was basically the sequel of World War I. World War II was always going to happen. Everybody in politics knew it at the time. It was just kicked down the can because people were tired of World War I and wanted it all to go away. Well, it didn't go away. It came back a few years later. You may remember 1939 to 1945. The First World War was 1918. So 1911 to 1918. So we all know this, right? So the Second World War happened, and again, it wasn't technically a world war. Everybody in the world was not at war. Not every country was at war. Sorry, 1914 to 1918. I do apologise, got my date wrong there. Not everybody in the world was at war. In fact, many countries weren't even aware there was a war. There were places in England certain villages and towns. I know I've spoken to people. My dad was evacuated at Paddington Station as an evacuee. My mum saw Coventry burning when the Germans bombed Coventry, a major city in England. There were many people in England who didn't even experience a war. It meant nothing to them other than it was something they read about in the newspaper. So the whole world was not at war. However, it was sold as a world war. Then, of course, we all know how it ended, and so on and so forth. Rolling along after the Second World War, we had the Eastern Bloc. We saw the end of the Soviet Union. We had the great the wall of Berlin, East Germany, the wall go up, the Iron Curtain come down, yada yada yada. We know all about that, and Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher and Glasnost and all these things. We saw all of this re-establishing Europe. NATO was set up. The Russian Empire was finished. It was now back to Russia again, the Republic of Russia. Blah 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 blah. But at this point, we'd created a global community. We now have the internet and global services, global businesses. Up to that point, the First World War and Second World War, we traded very, very differently. We didn't do multinational deals the same way. Yes, people would go to other countries, like the British Empire would go around the world and bring back potatoes, and we wasn't doing a deal with somebody in India. We wasn't doing a deal in America or Australia. We were conquering it. It was the British Empire. We owned these places, and they served the king, King George. And we brought back the products, and we brought back the the commodities and the money and resources, and we owned it. We took it. We stole it. We invaded it. We were the British Empire. That's what Adolf Hitler wanted to do, but already that was getting more difficult. Well, today, 2025, you can't do that. There's no invading a country and setting up your own economy. You can't do that because we are all interconnected now. Data centers in America, we study this a lot. Some of the most powerful supercomputers, most super data centers are in Israel. Why do you think that America is so deeply connected with Israel? There's a reason for that. Why do you think America went into Kuwait and Iraq for the oil, the power? Follow the money, you'll find it all. So we're interlinked now. So we form partnerships. That's what NATO is. More members have joined NATO now than ever before. The North Atlantic Treaty. So Russia is out of that, and they're a kind of pariah state now. They're kind of a nobody. Technically, in many respects, they're bankrupt in many respects. So we are in a different world now. There's no point Vladimir Putin invading the whole of Europe. There's no point of Vladimir Putin invading America or England or China or Australia. It would be counterproductive. They would lose their friends, if they've got any anyway, and they'd make no money whatsoever. They would have no money to buy their weapons. Nobody would supply them anything. The whole system would break. So, unlike those who call for World War III, there's not going to be a World War III. There could be an accidental firing of missiles. There could also be, more likely, an environmental disaster of some kind of germ or virus. Be much more concerned about Mpox or some new strain of COVID than Vladimir Putin. We all can see how useless Vladimir Putin is. His power, his army is absolutely rubbish. And if anyone was under any illusion and any doubt whatsoever, it would be completely possible for the SAS, the Secret Air Service, or Navy SEALs to take Vladimir Putin out in his own country. That could be done. We've got the power and the secret services to do that. It's not being done because that's not what wants to happen. We want to bring Vladimir Putin to the table and to negotiate a peaceful settlement. A peaceful settlement will come. The markets will not crash. World War III will not happen. However, that doesn't sell videos for people who want to talk rubbish. So, as you've just heard there from a very intelligent historian, a very intelligent military directive, you've learned what is actually going on the ground. I can tell you from my study of history and how the world works, there's not going to be a World War III. So feel confident in that. Feel confident that you can invest and you can live and you can be happy and everything's going to work out fine. So there's my update on Russia, how it will affect the economy, how it will affect each one of us. I believe it will come to an end faster than you can say Jack Robinson, and everything will work out just fine. I hope that Vladimir Putin will be taken out at some point because he's murdered tens of thousands of innocent people and has no place on this earth. And we've just been wasting time while he's been walking around with his silly arm down by his side. If anyone's ever wondered why he does that, that was training in the KGB to always have your arm ready to holster, grab a gun and shoot. The guy is a bloody lunatic. And, whatever. But the sooner this ends, the better. It's just been a complete and utter waste of money, waste of resources, waste of life, painful, boring, silly, unnecessary, complete nonsense. You're not going to re-establish the Russian Empire any more than the British are going to establish the British Empire. If we're going to go that far back, let's bring back Genghis Khan, and perhaps we might have a little go at the Roman Empire, or maybe we'd like the Mayans to pop up and start forming a posse. And if that doesn't work, let's bring back the bloody dinosaurs and they can all march around declaring independence. It's not going to happen. The history is all there to understand. It just doesn't sell videos. Anyway, there is what's going on in Russia. I thought I'd bring that to attention today. Many of you asked for my opinion on what's going on in the war, and I think this channel is not just about the stock market, it's about news, because news affects our investments. News affects our mental capacity to invest, because if we feel positive, we get up in the morning, we put our tie on, we have a shave, we work hard, and we feel positive, and we bring positive energy to the world and hopefully serve a useful life. Click above my head for all the links down below in the description. Over here and over here, there'll be more information. No idea what links to that, but I'll think of something. Nvidia, there you go. Virgin Galactic. What's that got to do with that? Anyway, I'll think of something. As always, most important, be safe, be happy, be optimistic, and always take care of yourselves and each other.